welcome to How to Fix It, and to another week of Alan Alda Month.
This diversified, curious, fascinating, bountiful, beautiful, beautiful world I love.
Canada gets a bad rap, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, Canada did give us Justin Bieber and Nickelback, but Canada also gave us Fateless, Michael J. Fox, Alex Trebek, and Dan Aykroyd. Now, you might be wondering what Canada has to do with Alan Alda, but I assure you that I have a point. But before we get to that, we need to talk about Michael Moore. I know that when you think Michael Moore, you think about documentaries, but he has had one foray into making a non-documentary film, and the result was Canadian Bacon, starring the Canadian-born John Candy in his final film role, and of course, Alan Alda. The movie also bombed, and it currently has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I mean, it's John Candy and Alan Alda, plus other stars like Rhea Perlman and Rip Torn. How can this be bad? And if it is bad, can it be fixed? Well, let's find out and check up on our neighbors to the north with Canadian Bacon.
Don't wanna be a Canadian idiot.
The movie has a few stories that interconnect at certain points, starting with the president, played by Alan Alda, who is the only president to have an entirely war-free term in office, and certain people are angry about that. Like R.J. Hacker, played by G.D. Spradlin, who owns Hacker Dynamics, a weapons manufacturing plant that is forced to shut down since without war, the military isn't buying Hacker's products. Other people who are angry are the employees of said plant, who are being laid off due to the plant's closure. President Alda explains that he believes that the futures of our children are more important than war, and that makes his approval rating tank, thus proving that as president, you can just never please people. He asks his security advisor, Stuart Smiley, and General Panzer, played by Kevin Pollak and Rip Torn respectively, what to do about the situation, and they recommend that he start another Cold War with Russia. However, Russia isn't interested in another war, so they go back to the drawing board. Meanwhile, Sheriff Bud Boomer, played by John Candy, who dreams of being featured on Cops one day, criticizes Canadian beer while at a hockey game at Niagara Falls between American and Canadian teams. That, of course, starts a brawl and gets the attention of Smiley, who suggests that they mount a war on Canada. Wow! Finally something that South Park didn't do first. Bud Boomer, his girlfriend Honey, played by Rhea Perlman, and their friends Roy Boy and Cabral, played by Kevin J. O'Connor and Bill Nunn respectively, decide to sneak over the border to mount an attack on Canada in their own way, by littering. But as they escape, Honey is captured by Mounties, and when trying to rescue her, Boomer, Roy Boy, and Cabral cause a massive power outage that gets the attention of the president, who sends a special ops team after them. Then Hacker, still angry about the president's part in closing his factory, uses a program, the Hacker Hellstorm, to activate all the missile silos in America and aim them at Russia, which could start another world war, and makes it so the signal appears to originate from Canada. Hacker tells the president that he'll sell him the codes that will cancel out the Hellstorm, but they cost $1 trillion. The president is trying to figure out what's going on, and Smiley figures out that Hacker is the one who set off the missiles, and fights him to get the codes, only to knock him off a ledge and kill him. The president orders that Smiley be arrested, while Smiley protests that he can help, and the president pleads with the Canadian Prime Minister to stop the missiles. Boomer tries to get to where Honey is, running into a highway cop played by Dan Aykroyd, while Honey, who had been taken to a mental hospital, escapes to the CN Tower and manages to destroy the Hellstorm console that was up there, and Boomer and Honey escape back to the US, while the president rejoices that the missiles didn't go off. A montage at the end reveals the fates of the characters, with Boomer getting to be on Cops, Honey being named Humanitarian of the Year by the NRA, the president getting defeated in the next election and ending up hosting a morning show in Cleveland, and Smiley getting pardoned for his crimes by the next president, Oliver North.
Don't wanna be a Canadian idiot.
Well, the movie is pretty funny. We all like to joke about Canada, and the movie has all the jokes about Canada that we've come to expect. Plus, I do think a lot of the satire works. The fact that the president's numbers are down because of a lack of war was pretty damn funny. And the part where they try to get the Russian president to do another Cold War with them is one of the funniest bits, as President Olda is begging the Russian president, and then Smiley and Panzer tackle him to prevent him from leaving in his helicopter, along with the following scene of the president going through a list of America's enemies, but Panzer explains that all of them are dead. It was also pretty interesting seeing Alan Alda playing a president trying to get a war started, when Hawkeye was the most anti-war individual at the 4077th on MASH, and Rip Torn is great as the crazed General Panzer. Also, John Candy and Rhea Perlman are hilarious, and they work pretty well off of each other, something I wasn't too sure of when I turned on the movie. In fact, everyone in the cast is pretty damn funny, and Moore did a great job casting comic actors for this satire.
Don't wanna be a Canadian idiot.
The satire is funny, but it does get a little tired rather quickly. Not to mention that the movie doesn't really get to the good part until almost an hour into the movie. The movie's really short too, only clocking in at 90 minutes, and it gets a little rushed near the end, with the entire plot of the movie getting resolved really fast, and it just doesn't feel like it ended. If the movie was a little longer, it could have been resolved in a more fulfilling way. I also think we could have gotten more development on some characters. Like, we come into the movie not knowing a lot about the characters, and leave knowing about the same amount that we knew going in. I know the whole idea of the movie was satirizing America, but that's no excuse for not giving well-rounded characters. Also, there's a fine line between satire and full-blown parody. And I don't know where the line is with this movie. It's some sort of Frankenstein's monster of really good satire and really bad parody, and it shows. Some of the jokes are really good, but some parts fall flat, the falling flat happening more often than the really good jokes did.
Don't wanna be a Canadian idiot.
I definitely would have toned down the satire, because as funny as the polite Canadians trope is, it's only funny for so long. That's why Weird Al's Canadian Idiot works so well as a song, because it's relatively short. Also, I'd have gotten straight to the war with Canada, instead of meandering for a half hour before getting to it. And I would have done more development on the ending. I actually ended up caring about what happens to some of the characters, and would have preferred to actually see Boomer on Cops, or the President on Get Up Cleveland. We got to see a little scene with the CIA agent that Smiley got his info on Canada from, but not from our main players.
Canadian Bacon.
And that was Canadian Bacon. Was it good? It was okay. I can totally see why it got a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. I liked it, but I can definitely see its flaws, and they're pretty obvious. The movie isn't crap, and it's worth it purely for Alan Alda's performance alone. As someone who's only seen Alan in leading roles, it's interesting seeing him when he isn't the star. And John Candy also gave a great performance as well. But that was expected. Overall, I do recommend the film, but it's only really worth watching if you're a fan of John Candy or Alan Alda. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of How to Fix It, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time for a look at the last thing that Alan Alda did before joining the cast of MASH.
Oh, I wish I was back in old Canada, a land which I never shall lampoon. How I pine for the ice-covering Lake Manitoba and the beauty that is Saskatoon.
I got one. Oh, I wish I was stuck in the hills of Alberta, drinking beer with some big dumb guy trapping fur.
Hey.
As he scraped and he chiseled all the moose dung off his boots, I would learn that he's the Prime Minister.
Oh, stop that.
Oh, I wish I was in the land that gave us Peter Jennings, Alanis Morissette, Mike Myers too.
Yeah.
No, I take that back, I wouldn't go there even if you paid me. Oh, Canada, you are a place I must eschew.
Now, this is not in the spirit that I intended.
Oh, come on, give in. I mean, after all, they gave us Ed the Sock and Rush.
Yeah, what are you defending? They're such thieves.
Okay, I'll try.
All right, good
Go.
man.
Oh, I wish I was blowing up Prince Edward Island and going on to bomb Ontario. The destruction of Canada and all of its culture is by far my favorite scenario.
Okay, I mean, that's a little strong. You
No,
gotta back
no,
it
you were
down.
right, Mike. This is much more fun. Just where the hell does Canada get off sharing?
Bud Boomer, his girlfriend Honey, played by Rhea Perlman, and their friends Roy Boy and Cabral, played by Jevin K. O'Connor.